You are listening to the Purdue Report with Jake Dunn every Wednesday on the Central Indiana Sports Report. Welcome back, Boilermaker fans, to the Central Indiana Sports Report for this week's Purdue Report with Jake Dunn. Jake here today to talk some Purdue basketball, of course, and a little bit of Purdue football with the portal opening, and we have some updates. Jake, why don't you go ahead and start us off, and welcome back.
Thanks for having me, as always. Purdue's been fairly active in the portal here. They've seen about 23 players announce their intention to leave Purdue in the portal. Most of the departures were depth pieces, so they weren't necessarily stars, but Purdue did see a few departures that I think probably would have liked to really retain. Some of the biggest ones, starting center Braden Joyner. That was a pretty recent development here over the past day or two. He has since committed to Florida State. Hank Purvis, we've talked about him. He started a little bit on the offensive line. He's committed to South Carolina. We've talked about Nitro Tuggle. He has visits lined up to South Carolina as well, and Vanderbilt. He has yet to make a decision. Malachi Singleton, that one didn't necessarily hurt as bad, but he has made a decision. He will be attending Appalachian State next year. Yeah. The other really kind of big one was Chops Harkless. He and former high school teammate D'Amico Kennedy both entered the portal. D'Amico Kennedy is committed to Louisville. Chops Harkless has yet to commit anywhere. But some of the biggest by position groups here, I've had 5 offensive linemen enter the portal. That's somewhat expected with the firing of Vance Weiss, former offensive line coach for Purdue. Expected to see some turnover there. A few linebackers, a few defensive linemen, and a few receivers have been kind of the main positions that have entered into the portal. So you've had, like I said, about 23 enter the portal. Purdue is now, with some recent commitments here, is now up to 7 commits here to through the portal to Purdue. So highlighted here by Texas running back Jared Gibson. It'll be a good one. He really kind of starred here at Texas. The On3 rankings give him an 89.47 ranking as a transfer. So he's somebody who I think is poised to be the running back number 1. So he'll lead that room, and played 4 games here for Texas and decided to redshirt and then enter the transfer portal. He has some good size. Kind of reminds me of a DJ Knox. For those of you that remember DJ Knox, a guy who has some power to him. He's not the fastest, but he's got good size and good strength. So he does have a little bit of a fumbling problem. That's something that I'm sure the coaching staff will work on here at Purdue. Probably the next biggest recruit from the portal, Jaden Mangum. He is a defensive back, a safety from Michigan. That was a pretty big get. On3 ranks him 87.94 in transfer portal rankings. So a guy who has experience in the power 2 level, just like Jared Gibson. And probably there's got some other guys in the portal here that have played at the power 2 level. Got a couple offensive linemen from USC. Just before we went live here, got a linebacker from Penn State who's more of a depth piece of Penn State, but is kind of poised to take over, some minutes here from Manny Powell, and then not necessarily a portal, a recruit from the portal, but a win in the portal world that we're in now. Purdue was able to retain Charles Correa, so he was kind of a nice tandem with Manny Powell. Manny Powell graduated; he's out of eligibility. But Charles Correa did decide to stay, so that was good news that broke here earlier today. So, so far, I think Purdue's doing pretty well here in the portal. On3 has them ranked currently 9th in the nation, in the portal rankings. So those rankings look at people who have left and people that they've brought in. So according to On3 rankings, the average, level of player that has transferred out of Purdue has been a ranking score of 63.45, and the average score of the people that Purdue has brought in has been 70.29. So a good increase there. Looks like Purdue's doing fairly well so far, and I'm sure that'll continue. Hopefully, we'll continue to rise here, and we'll get the rest of this roster filled out here over the next. I think the portal's open for another 6 days or so, so I'm sure we'll see some more movement there. So far, coming off of the season Purdue had last year, I think kind of off to a fairly good start so far.
A long way to go, but pretty good couple of days.
For sure, definitely have a long way to go still. But so far Purdue has been, getting better guys than the guys that they've lost for the most part. Some of those guys are going to be hard to get back, or hard to replace their value, but they're getting better, in the depth positions, which that obviously is going to help the team here, especially with injuries as you progress throughout the season. So so far it's like I said, looking like a nice class so far here.
Jake, today I was looking at the bracketology on ESPN. They have Purdue as a number 2 seed in the East, with Connecticut the number 1. That would probably be that's not a scenario I want. Let's just stay in the Midwest and play in St. Louis. And in order to do that, you got to win games like the next 3. You got Washington at home, Penn State at home, Iowa at home. 3 games in a calendar week at Mackey Arena. Of course, Iowa's ranked 19th, so that's a pretty good team, but should be 3-0 if you're a team that wants to be a number 1 seed.
Definitely need to be 3-0 there. Washington and Penn State, I certainly don't want to write them off, but they are pretty similar to the opponents that Purdue has played here. They're not great teams, but they're good enough to where anybody in the Big Ten is good enough to where they can beat you on any given night. So I think be a good test against Iowa here later in the week. But so far, I think Purdue matches up pretty well with both Washington and Penn State.
ESPN Analytics, which I like to reference, has Purdue with a 92% chance to win the game tonight, Wednesday night.
Yeah, I think it's right up there with ESPN Analytics in terms of percentage of winning the game. I've seen a little bit of Washington, watched a little bit of their game against IU. Wasn't really impressed with them. They've got talent, they just can't really put it together. It's kind of what I gathered from there. They've got a freshman from Germany, and the Big Ten broadcast mentioned that he has connections with Dirk Nowitzki. So he's a good player. I'm sure he'll probably make his way to the NBA here in the next year or two. Haynes Steinbach is his name. So he's a really good player, currently averaging 18.3 points a game, 11.8 rebounds, and 2 assists and a block and a steal, essentially. So pretty good overall player. Washington's got some other players on their team that Purdue is fairly familiar with, but I think he will be the biggest kind of point of contention here.
Obviously, these games are about winning the games, but at this point in the season, building that depth is going to be a key to watch as we head into the Big Ten here.
From a defensive standpoint, I don't think Washington's defense is good enough to really stop Purdue. Purdue does have a little bit of familiarity, like I mentioned earlier, with Desmond Claude. He was a transfer from USC. He gave Purdue some trouble in the Big Ten tournament last year. Zoom Diallo is a highly talented freshman that played at Washington last year. He's now a sophomore. And then they have a guy from Gary, actually, Kamari Peterson. He's a guard, a senior from Gary. Started his journey at Indiana State. So he's a guy that I'm sure will be looking to kind of go off here against Purdue. And then finally, if we have any IU listeners here, Bryson Tucker, he was on IU last year, transferred to Washington, where he's now a sophomore. He got some playing time against IU and looked decent. So definitely have some talent. They've got some players, but I think
offensively they're not horrible.
Yeah, I think Purdue just kind of overpowers them here. I don't think there's really, I don't think it'd really be much of a game.
I don't either. It wouldn't have mattered where it was played. I wouldn't have think it'd be much of a game, but we'll see. I guess that's why they play him, Jake. And then on Saturday, 2:00 on the Big Ten Network, 9-6 Penn State, 0-4 in the Big Ten. ESPN Analytics, 97% chance that Purdue will win that game. And if Penn State's not the worst team in the Big Ten, they're one of the worst, but the last couple of weeks, they've been competitive with Illinois and Michigan.
They have. I'd be lying to you if I could name. If I told you I could name one player on Penn State's roster. I'm looking at it right now, and not a single name really rings a bell here. So couldn't really tell you much about them, to be honest. But shouldn't really be much of a factor. I watched a little bit of them when they played Michigan State earlier in the season. It's been a while ago, almost a month ago actually. Watched them play. They played Michigan State close. You mentioned they played Illinois close, and they just lost by 2 to Michigan tonight. So clearly they can play with the best of them. It looks like they get up for big games, but hopefully with this one being at Purdue, Purdue can kind of have their way with them and be able to get pretty easy looks and execute on their sets.
They started the season 8-1, and then IU beat them by 30 points. Since then, they've been pretty good. 4-point losses, you mentioned, to Michigan State. Then they were blown out by Pitt, but just an 8-point loss to Illinois. And then tonight, I have not seen what happened in the game yet. Michigan had a 9-point lead at halftime, but that's pretty impressive for them. So you maybe don't take them too lightly.
This one being at Mackey Arena, I got to feel pretty good about this one. So I'd probably agree with those ESPN analytics there.
Seems like a good chance for Braden Smith to continue his run at Bobby Hurley, and a chance to see some guys get some bigger minutes. All right, Jake, that's another Purdue report in the books. So sad that it's over, but we'll be back to talk about another Purdue victory over the Washington Huskies.
Should be a pretty good win here. I'm going to predict Purdue winning by 25.
I'll take the under. I'll say something like 17, but I won't be surprised if they run away with it. Jake, thanks so much. Always appreciate it. Everybody, thanks so much for listening. Do us a huge favor. Share this podcast with a Purdue fan in your life. Help us spread the word that Central Indiana Sports Report is talking about what Central Indiana sports fans are talking about every single day. Thanks again, Jake.
Yeah, thank you. Boiler up.
Boiler up. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.